Okay, you're watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, Thursday, 11 p.m., December 21st. And I seem to have left the window open. A little bit of snow getting in here. Today we're playing something that has been building up on this channel for a while. We've been threatening to play one of these Cozy Killer games for quite a while, maybe a year now. And we finally screwed up the courage to do it. So this will be episode 1 of at least 12. I've got 12 little boxes here. This is the package it arrived in from England. We're going to talk a little bit about what Cozy Killer is, the specific season we're going to play here. We'll do a little bit of bookkeeping first, but let me check in with the chat. Make sure everyone is here. We've got the regulars. We've got a couple new people. YouTube says 16 concurrent viewers, 9 likes. If you do like the content on this channel, I do hope you'll subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Okay, bookkeeping first. On Sunday, a few days ago, I did my second developer diary live stream for High and Low, the New York noir detective game that I've been working on with the help of a whole bunch of volunteers, a group of volunteers. And it's getting to the fun part, finally, after many months. It's getting to the part where we've got some art and we've got a bunch of people who are working on some cases. If you think you might want to write a case for it, it's very similar to Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, then I hope you'll stop by the Discord or the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel, and we'll find a way to put you to use. So there's that, and this coming Sunday, we will finally get back to playing Dear Holmes at our normal time of 3 p.m. So if you don't have the stamina for the 5-hour session or whatever that today is going to be, late night sessions, you might be able to join us for our 3 p.m. Sunday play-by-mail session. So we've got a new case of Dear Holmes. That'll be 3 p.m. on Sunday. And then hopefully in the next day or two, I'll get up a review of Penny Dreadfuls, which we played last week, which was a totally bizarre, crazy experience. And I'm still not sure exactly what I'm going to say about that. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to point out is I wanted to share with you a game that I saw discussed, played through on YouTube. Let's see if I can bring it up here. A game called Alibi. Let me see if I can, I don't know if you need to actually see this video. Where do I have it up on the thing? Yeah, maybe that's better. Okay, so let's do it this way. I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it's quite interesting. It's basically a board game version of what many of these murder mystery dinners are that I've played a bunch with my groups. That is, you can see everyone gets, there's 3 cases. You must play it with 5 to 7 players. Each person gets their own deck. And then you go through a set of rounds where each person reads the first card to themselves of their deck, which tells them a little bit about their role, their character, and some secrets. And you basically just spend the game revealing your secrets until you get to the end. You have to figure out which among the players is the murderer. And there's a playthrough on Tantrum House, which is a well-known board game channel. There's their playthrough if you're curious. The one thing that's different that seems pretty cool is you can see on the table there are these common set of clues that get revealed. And they're nice pictures that you could pass around. So I am tempted to play this with my normal murder mystery dinner group. I think it's better suited for a dinner where you're relaxing, having drinks, but I'm very curious about this new shared common card being images and the possibility that the actual clues in this game might be better than you find in a normal murder mystery. Okay, checking back in with the chat here. Some nice comments about High and Low. Okay, so Cozy Killer. Let's talk about Cozy Killer. Cozy Killer is the brainchild of a woman named Jo Smedley, I believe is her name. And she's got a company, in addition to Cozy Killer, which has 4 or 5 of these long-form games. 12 episodes meant to be ordered from the company directly. You get it once a month for a year. And there's an Inheritance of Murder, which is the most famous one that that the people who have played Cozy Killer know that one. And then there's a Murder at Marlborough House, which is a Jack the Ripper set game. There's the one we're playing called The Hidden Listener, which is World War II. There's a brand new one that just kickstarted called Site Q, something, The Lost Site Q or something like that. And then there's another one that appeals to me that's like Egyptian pyramids, Hammurabi or something. They're very expensive. They list on the website for almost $500, I believe, for a full season. You can get them on eBay for maybe $400. You can occasionally find them used for a couple hundred. I happen to have 2 sets. I have the Hidden Listener here, which I bought directly from the company for $300 and something. Huge. This is the most I've ever spent on one of these games. And then I picked up a used copy of Inheritance of Murder. And then Joe Smedley's company makes some other things. They run mystery sort of team building things for companies. They've also experimented with some live Zoom-based mysteries where you can actually talk to the actors. And Joe Smedley has put out a couple of small books, one on codes and ciphers and one that I happen to have here. Thin little pamphlet here on how to write your own murder mystery party. So she's quite a busy person, and it's clear that a lot of care and handwork goes into these games. And you can see they're sort of, this is not a mass-marketed hunt-a-killer thing. These are sort of hand-assembled and hand manipulated. And I've seen one of the boxes. I've seen the first box for Inheritance to Murder because I picked up someone selling used the first 3 boxes. I have a feeling that what the company did has been to send out occasionally to reviewers the first couple boxes of a set. Because if you search on the web for reviews of the Cozy Killer games, you are not going to find many or any. I have not yet found an unbiased review. I've found a couple of people that have posted reviews of their experiences with the first couple boxes of a set, and I think that's because that's what the reviewers get sent. Anyway, so I've opened up the first box of Inheritance of Murder, and it's got a giant, thick diary in it, hundreds of pages of reading. So I think if you're joining us for this, you can expect over the course of it, there's going to be quite a bit of reading. It's going to take us at least 12 sessions to play through this. I know that the first box of Hidden Listener doesn't have one document like that, but you'll see these feel different. And it's hard for me to imagine paying $400 for a game, but on the other hand, I mean, I easily pay $30 for a one-night session. So I mean, only you can know how much these things are worth. It depends what you get out of them. This group as a group loves the long epic games, and we like to play them over the holidays as well. So this felt like an appropriate thing, and this is about as epic a set as you can buy. So one of the things I'm very curious about is, what is our takeaway after finishing this? Is this something we want to play more of? Do we want to play more of the Cozy Killer sets? And how much enjoyment will we get out of it? I have a little bit of concern in terms of, I know that there's some real attention to narrative in this, which is what I like. I'm a little bit concerned about how much emphasis there is on ciphers, which are a little bit hit or miss with me. I've got a couple of my cipher books here, and we've got our materials. But I know that Joe Smedley has written this book on sort of tips and tricks to codes and ciphers, and the blog has a couple of codes and ciphers entries. And I can see from some of the pictures that they're in these games. Plus, we're dealing with World War II, the age of cracking the Enigma, and the British focused on, they had a very famous Bletchley Park whole team, huge team, cracking the German Enigma that was used to encrypt codes. So it's even more appropriate here that there be ciphers. So I think we have to expect some, or a good number, but I'm very curious to see how that goes. All right, a little bit more of the background here. I'm not sure what our schedule will be for playing these. Normally when we tackle these multi-episode games, we play like one after the other, and maybe we've played some that have taken us 7 days or so. We're going to have to be a little more flexible with this. We're not going to play 12 days in a row of this game. Remember that originally they're set to arrive once a month, so it's reasonable for us to play them with some gaps. And I'm not sure that there'll be a regular schedule for this, but if you want to stay with us and play this the whole time, you might stop by the Board Game Geek guild for this channel. There's a link on the About page of this YouTube page. And let me know what are good days, bad days for you. Usually I defer to Jonathan Warner for picking our schedule out, but we'll play off and on, maybe with a day break between sessions, maybe a couple sessions in a row. I think probably I'd love to play on Christmas to sort of celebrate the holiday by playing, and maybe even New Year's, but it's going to depend on the group. Or you can come by the Discord channel. Again, a link to that on the About page to help us decide when to schedule these. And maybe we'll schedule them far enough apart so that you could catch up if you miss one. All right, anything else we need to talk about before we get started? We will try to finish them in January. Sometime in January, we'll finish this box, this set. And then we'll talk about it, of course. I hope you will make notes as we play about things you liked, things you didn't like, because at the very end of this, we'll be talking about it, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you're not sure if this game is for you, remember, you can only play it and enjoy it once. It's a narrative mystery game. So if you think you might buy this game and play it yourself, you could watch a little bit of the first episode and then step away, get it yourself, and then watch this afterwards. All right, let's see. Anything else to talk about before we get started here? It looks like, okay, there's comments are coming through now. Comments not about this game. All right, is everyone excited about playing this? I know I am. I have a little bit of trepidation. Anything else I wanted to show you on the tablet before we get started? Not really. I mean, I've got some cipher stuff. If we need it, we'll get to it. Maybe we won't need it in the first case. Are you ready to go? I mean, the other thing I didn't say, which I try to remember to say these days, is that I do buy all of the games we play on this channel myself. This was a tough one to swallow. On the other hand, this channel does make it enjoyable. It's fun to have people to play these games with and share the experience, and for that alone, it's worth it. All right, let's see what this is. You can see this is how the games are packaged. I know from seeing the other ones that they're all in this form factor. 12 of these little boxes. You would get them one a month. This is box 1. You can see, whoa, why is that so bright? Let's see here. All right, I guess that's a little better. Still a little bit bright. All right, I guess that's better. What about this one? Is this one better? Yeah, okay. All right, anyway, here we go. We can see we've got a little, looks like a little military phone that you would use. All right, so let's put the rest of these aside. We're only going to play one box an episode. This one feels quite light, especially compared to the Inheritance of Murder box, which I think is a good idea. Sort of ease us into this gently. All right. Clear that I have not set up my camera properly for this game. I should have zoomed out this close-up camera. All right, we'll worry about that. We'll worry about that next time. Let's open up our first box. Does anyone have any plans for Christmas? Any activities? Any game playing that people are doing with their Christmas family? All right, let's see what we've got here. Let's see if I do have to adjust this camera or not. I kind of do. Hold on, let's just get this right. I see, I didn't even... All right, well, that's good enough. All right, so it's got my full address. That's all right. You could find that easily enough. Dear Jesse Reichler, investigation case number LH4958HL. We are working on behalf of the National Archives, who are endeavoring to return documents censored during wartime operations to the nearest living relatives. Although many wartime records were declassified decades ago, there were a significant proportion of highly classified documents which are only now reaching the end of their period of classification. Many of these relate to secret intelligence operations undertaken during the Second World War. We believe you may be the nearest living relative of Elizabeth Phillips. Elizabeth Phillips worked for the Combined Services Detailed Interrogation Center based at Latimer House during World War II, and it is believed she died during one of the last few V-2 rocket attacks to hit London. As part of the ongoing efforts by the archival team to reunite families with their documents, we have enclosed a set of letters which appear to have been redacted before a decision was taken to censor them entirely. These letters never reached their destination and were instead classified along with other wartime documents. Our research team have noticed some discrepancies within the documents released so far and have requested we open an investigation. I've included a copy of Elizabeth's death certificate as well as a paper reproduced by the Memorabilia Pack Company, which was originally published around the same time as one of the dated letters. I'm sure once you've reviewed all documents enclosed, you will understand why our research team have become so interested in Elizabeth's wartime records. We will, of course, be undertaking this investigation without any cost to yourself, and we will, of course, remain in constant contact and keep you up to date with our findings. Here's faithfully, Messrs. Fairhall and Brett. Correspondence includes replica newspaper, Okay, so this is on the letterhead of Fairhall and Brett, inheritance recovery, which I gather is used in their other cases as their narrative system here. But this is pretty cool. Okay, so we are maybe the nearest living relative of Elizabeth Phillips. Worked for the interrogation center based at Latimer House. Died in a V-2 rocket attack to hit London. They're trying to get us back documents that were never sent. They found discrepancies and they're opening an investigation. Okay. Okay, what have we got here? Bunch of letters. Whole bunch of letters we're going to read. Some photographs or postcards. Postcards that never got sent. Death. And then a very real looking newspaper. Wow, look at this. Could this be a real newspaper? I mean, this is actually a fairly serious newspaper that looks very genuine. All right, well, a multi-page newspaper. We were just debating on the channel about game design of Sherlock Holmes involving newspapers. And all right, so it's going to take us a while to get through this newspaper, but wow, if you like newspapers, this looks like a full one. I see I'm going to have to turn down the lighting here a little bit more. This is a good reminder of one thing that was told to me from someone who's played a bunch of these Cozy Killer games. And that was that we shouldn't be surprised if we get information, a document in one box that's not fully solvable till a future box. So it's always a question with these companies that put out a year series delivered one box at a time. Are the boxes self-contained? And so I've been told by someone who hasn't played this series, but a different Cozy Killer case, that we shouldn't be too surprised if we get stuff we can't fully understand till a future box. So let's read some of these, and then we'll maybe take an early break. I can fix the cameras a little bit, and if you think you don't want to play along with us, that would be a time to leave. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, so we've got some handwriting. It's clearly in a computer font, but that makes it a little easier to read, except it's German. Okay, well, that's interesting. So this may reflect, if we've got a German speaker in the channel, that might be helpful. We've also got ways to translate these days with some nice AI. But I think it may point to a detail about the Cozy Killer games that we may not be used to here, which is that they may embrace the slow play formula where you're not expected to just sit down in one session and solve a box. We might expect that we have to do some additional work between boxes. If we do decide to do some of that on this channel, we'll be discussing it in the Discord. So let's see. It would be nice if I could set up a way to do translation. In fact, we could try it. Anna says, I wrote to her mother, my German is a bit rusty. Let's just take a look to see if we don't have translations here. Let's look at the letters we have as a whole before we... The other thing is, everyone who plays this game with me is locked into playing it with me. So you can't go off on your own doing stuff on documents as we move past them. You can only work on them while we're working on them. Okay, so these are different letters. I just wanted to see if maybe if the Censor Bureau translated. So we've got one letter in German, and then two more letters in English, all written by the same person, Lizzie. There are dates. We've got a 15 October, a 13 October, and an 18 of May, 1943. So the order is actually this way. So let's start with the earliest letter. Let's see if I can't fix this lighting a little bit more. All right, let's read the October 13 in English. October 13, 1942, Supply Department, Northwest 12, number 1 distribution center at Buckinghamshire. Dear Penny, I've arrived. Use the address above for correspondence. It was all very exciting. I got given a railway ticket to Chalfont and Latimer and was told I'd be met at the station, and I was. By a very smart officer and his driver. I say I, but there were another 3 of us on the train, and we all squeezed into the back seat together. Just as well, we're all on rations. And then censored. Itself is rather grand. Now let's see. Can we make out the censor? Because I can kind of see it. I can kind of see through it. Well, let's not worry, but something itself is rather grand, but I'm billeted with the other Wrens in a barracks on the northwest of the camp here. There are such a lot of girls here. All of us can speak at least, this clearly says 2 languages. At least 2 languages. Captain Solomon said we all picked something, but so far I haven't seen anyone at the same aptitude test as me. Perhaps we haven't all arrived yet. We might see if we can't get a flashlight to see these a little bit better. Latimer House itself is what Anna says. Makes sense, but then they didn't censor Latimer up here. But maybe this is the town of Latimer and they just don't want them revealing what house they're at. I made friends with a couple of the girls already. Just like you said I would. I suppose there's something about a posting like this that you make friends fast. Dorothy and Neely are a great crack. Neely was one of the girls on the same train as me, and we hit it off immediately. She has the most amazing hair. She laughed when I said I'd eaten all my crust to try and get hair like hers. She said curly hair carries its own annoyances. But what I wouldn't give to have more of her natural bounce. She's promised she'll help me curl mine before the first dance. All the talk at the camp is of a girl called something. Some say she must have something. No one is talking about it openly, and whenever one of us new girls arrives on the scene, all talk stops, which makes it all the more curious. Rumors are there is a blank, constructed way back when, long before blank owned the property anyway. Some say she used to leave unseen. Some say she used that to leave unseen. It looks like there's a secret passageway they're talking about. Well, okay. Some say she used that to leave unseen. That could be important for us. The whole base is rattled anyway, and I can't get sense out of anyone. Even Dorothy won't talk about it. Neely and I are trying to piece together the puzzle so we don't feel so much in the dark. They started me off in the typing pool, but you know my typing isn't up to much. I'm not impressing anyone. Neely is about 3 times the speed I am. That's with the typing and then adding in the something by umlaut by hand. Okay, so she's writing German. I'm hoping I'll get transferred. Dorothy says they usually do that with slow typists. There are plenty of other jobs for us to do and more of us arriving every week. It seemed odd trying to write a letter without saying what you're doing, so I guess that's why your letters to me are always so short. Hope you're sleeping well and the weather where you are isn't as miserable as it is where we are, Lizzie. So it sounds like she's talking to a friend who's also working for the war effort somewhere else. And we could read some of the censored stuff. It's clear with some effort we could read all of it if we had to. A little tilt makes it a little easier to read. So all of us speak 2 languages. We were all picked because of our language abilities. Okay, so they're clearly here to deal with German documents, translations of some sort. Logan says, I bought a Dutch game I didn't realize was not in English and used my phone camera to transfer. Yeah, I do actually have a way we could do it. We can actually try it. Since we're not stressed about this kind of stuff, let's try it a little bit. So let me see how to do this. The way to do it is go to the tablet, get out Google Lens, bring the tablet over. Let's see if we can do this. Turn the tablet up. Get this under there. Let's see if it'll do it. Let's go full screen so you can see it. Translate. Look at this. All right. So pretty impressive to Google and pretty impressive to me for having this set up so we could do it. All right. Can we close this dialog? Yes. Okay. I got to my new job and was promoted to sergeant within a day. I wish it was because of my abilities, but everyone here has a rank of an equivalent something. Oh, I can't see this, but if I move it here, maybe I can. Let's see. This is pretty magical. All right, what? Maybe if I move it here, can I do it? Okay. You don't have to worry about the bombs anymore. I doubt there'll be a problem here so far from the city. The base is surrounded by fields and hills. I can smell the fertilizer even now as I write you. It's definitely a change from the dirty city air. Dear mother. Okay, she's writing to her mother, which is Liebe Mutter. Okay. Let's continue on. I am with the Ustaf God. That can't be translated, right? Let's see if I move it in the center. I'm busy with this all day. Thank God this bomb didn't cause any damage to my hearing. Thank God the bombs maybe didn't cause any damage to my hearing. Something. I'm not sure what this says. Luckily, you insisted that I continue my private something. One of the voices I hear on a regular basis reminds me of my teacher's dark voice. I imagine that the man whose voice I hear also has a mustache and the same bushy ones I have eyebrow ones and the same bushy something. Let's see. Translation looks a little rough here, but nickname Holst. Let's see if we can look at the German. I nicknamed him Holst. We never found out if our Haylet was related to the famous composer Diddy. Okay, so she's writing transcripts for people that she's listening to the audio of. She's got one who's got a nasal voice who she's nicknamed Holst. I found girlfriends and I'm settling in well. Many of the girls here type much faster than me. My new girlfriend, Dorothy, something, numerous jobs. I hope I will be transferred soon. Okay, very similar to the letter she was writing her friend. Let's see what else we got here. I was the only one who my boss says I'm the only one who understands Hulk. Hope you're getting along well at home and don't give away too many of your grocery vouchers. I know how generous you are, but you can't live on vegetables alone. I don't miss anything here, but if you had time to rip up my old sweater and make a scarf out of it like you offered, it would be nice to have a reminder of the good times at home, even if the souvenir then takes on a new form. I'll write you again soon and tell you as much as I can. With love, Lizzie. All right. So there's the German translated pretty well, pretty conveniently. And come on, guys. Where else do you get that than on this channel? Where else did I practice doing that? Not today, but in the past. All right. So that was useful. If we need to translate, we know we can do it pretty cleanly. And now we've got one more letter that wasn't sent until 1942 October. Sorry, that was October 1942, both those letters saying mostly the same thing. And then we've got a letter from May 1943. So what, 8 months later or so. Let's see what she's writing. Penny again. It was lovely to see you the other week. I know we couldn't talk about the work we're both doing, but it was just nice to catch up in the canteen. A promotion too. You looked very smart with those extra stripes. And she's got a whole couple lines. A little harder to read this one. But I'll bet we could read it if we needed to. So maybe we'll go back to this. I'm glad you got to meet Neely. Dorothy is a great card too. I'm sure you'd have loved her as well. One day we'll be able to visit London again by bus and share a bottle of Bordeaux. Did you say your runner's name was Washington? Did you say your runner's name? I think she's using a term of art here to mean the person who's in charge of her. Is that what she's saying? Runner's name? Runners, yeah, I think she's talking about the person who's in charge of her. We probably want to figure out what that says. Can anyone make it out without... I'll get a flashlight. We'll see if that doesn't help us. The angle almost does it with a little bit of effort. Not quite though. Nothing on the back of these letters. Well, the German one talked about Holst. We might want to write that down. If Anna, if you're taking notes, maybe you could write down one of the people she's listening to with the nasal voice is Holst. All right, those are our letters. Let's see, we've got some postcards now. Oh, there's Latimer House. So I don't know if Latimer House is a real place. The only place I know from the war effort in England is Bletchley Park, which is where the cryptographers worked. But typically they would, all the war efforts would start out in London, and as the war ramps up, they move them out of London to larger spaces where it's safer out of the city and also can house more workers. Okay, Latimer House, Latimer 32. Okay, let's see. Dear Carl, I know you're worried on my behalf, but everything's fine. Neely has it all planned and worked out. I'm sure you remember her. And always the one to over-prepare. I'm surprised Latimer managed without her for the whole of October. But she's back now and has other plans for the department. Kendrick agrees with everything, and final plans are in place, but I wish just once that I could have seen you again. Remember me fondly and try to let me go. What we had was special, but everything must end one day. So there's her NE19 Supply Department #1 Distribution Center. So her letters were from NW12 Supply Department. This is where this is being sent to NE19, but at her same supply department and distribution center. Let me just look at these again for a second. And they said discrepancies in some of these, so I guess we should be keeping our eye open for some discrepancies ourselves. So these letters are all from NW12. NW12, NW12. That's Lizzie, the person who's writing these, who I guess is Elizabeth, the person that they think we're related to. And then she's writing to Carl, who's at NE19. And it does have a stamp. It was put and stamped, which is a little odd. No date, though. Okay, here's another picture. Is it also of Latimer House? No, it's of somewhere else. It almost looks like little Russian spires, but maybe not enough of them. I don't know where this is. Let's see if it says. Oh, yeah. I wonder. Okay. Dear Miss Kruger, this is from Mr. and Mrs. Kruger, or to Mr. and Mrs. Kruger at Chalfont, which came up before in one of our letters. And is it Russian or German? Dear Miss Kruger, in April, monthly aims looked initially very easy, although not delivered. We expect larger levels in next general evaluation results may accelerate next year. Okay, all caps. This makes you think that maybe we're looking at what? First letter of each word, perhaps? And it sounds odd, like there's some code going on here. But DMK IAMAL doesn't sound particularly useful in English. You could read them down. DIID, no. In April, monthly aims looked initially very easy, although not delivered. We expect larger levels. Okay, WELLING, Wellinger, man. I think we got to write this out. I think it is going to be first initial of each word. Let's see if when we write it out, it makes a little more sense. DMK. DMK, is that the letters for Germany? Let's just write it out first. We'll figure it out later. In April, monthly aims looked initially very easy, although not delivered. We expect larger levels in next general evaluation results may accelerate next year. Okay, well, that looks like many. And then, oh, Germany. What? Well in Germany. Is it well in Germany? Okay, well in Germany. That's our end words. I am alive and in Germany. DMK. I am alive and well in Germany. Okay. So, sincerely, L. So this is our Lizzie, same handwriting, writing to Mr. and Mrs. Kruger. DMK. Maybe this is maybe this is Dear Miss Kruger still, or maybe it means something else. But here she is saying, I'm alive and well in Germany. All right, well, that's interesting. Do we have a postal date on this one? Nice to know what date these got sent. 9/8/1945. So years after our letters. Maybe we write that down somewhere since that's hard to see with the naked eye. I'll put it here. 9/8/1945. And since we're in Europe, we think that would mean the 9th day of August, 1945, right? Not the 8th day of September, but August 9th, 1945. Okay. Let us keep that with this. We don't know if the DMK means anything or if it's just that the beginning had no code translation. All right, pretty cool. All right, we got our first little code. Pretty enjoyable. But this one doesn't look like, our first one we read didn't look like a code. It just looked like a regular letter to Carl. I know you're worried on my behalf. We don't have a date here either. This one doesn't have any postal date, which is odd. So let's take a look at this one last time, though. I've arrived. This is the first letter she sent. Use the address for correspondence. I got given a railway ticket to Chalfont and Latimer. So she doesn't live in Chalfont. The Latimer house is near Chalfont. And then here she is writing this postcard 3 years later to Chalfont. Interesting. All right. What about our letter? What was her last name? Phillips, not Kruger. And the person she's working for is not Phillips either. It's Captain Solomon. So we don't know who a Kruger is. Can we put in the notes that we don't know who this person Kruger is? All right, let's go take a look at our death certificate here. This is our last thing other than the newspaper. Okay. Death due to war operations. To be entered immediately upon reception of the body at the mortuary. 8th of March, 1945. So this is before the postcard saying I'm alive and well in Germany. Postcard comes in August. Here's her death certificate in March. Pretty cool. All right, let's see how she died. Place of death, Smithfield Market in London. Female, 24 years old. Cause of death, buried under wreckage, fractured skull. Andrew Paulson, officer in charge, 8th of March, 1945. Body claimed and removed for burial by relatives or friends. Signature of relative or friend, C. Townsend. Supply Department, number 1 Distribution Center, Buckinghamshire. So first of all, we didn't say this before, but this is like a cover story that it's the Supply Department number 1 Distribution Center for what's really going on here. But whoever has signed it, C. Townsend, is this our, not Captain Solomon, okay. Deceased identified by relative or friends as Elizabeth Phillips. Okay, so if we're keeping track of our cast of characters, this is someone to add to that list. Can we make it out a little bit better? C. Townsend. I think that's a T. Townsend. Unless someone can read that better. My cursive reading is not so great. Serial identification number 30759. Didn't claim the body. That's it. Andrew Paulson signed off. Officer in charge, 8th of March. So, oh, there's something in back too. Let's just see. Notes. This entry should state the apparent cause of death. If national registration is in force and the identity card is found on the body, serial identification number must be entered, either in Part B or C. Identity card should be marked, in other words, sent to War Operations and forwarded with this form to the clerk. This entry should confirm the entry made in A5. It is not intended that any attempt should be made to give medical details, but particulars furnished should relate to the nature of the violence. Okay. All right, let's see. Chat has something to say. Note in your updates are day, month, year. Yes, I noted that with the postcard. This is not her death certificate if she wrote the letter a few months earlier. Yeah, that's what we're saying. A few months later. Yeah, that's what we're saying. What we're saying is she's not really dead. That's exactly what we pointed out, that this seems to be a notice about her death. And yet we've got a postcard sent in August, several months later, saying she's still alive. So this is, she didn't really die. Okay. We don't know if the people who filled this out are in on it or not, but whoever identified the body seems like they're probably lying and probably in on it. We don't know who this is the body of. Okay, so now we have the newspaper to look through. This is going to be a shortish box because we don't have too much more to go through, but we have a lot to read in the newspaper. But I think what we should do is take a break now, and then we'll take our time and go through the newspaper, and this will set the tone. We'll learn a little bit about the history of England leading up to the war. May 18th, 1943. Okay, so we'll take a break here. I'll see you in 8 minutes. Okay, we're back. You're watching Co-op for Two. We're playing The Hidden Listener from Cozy Killer, a very deluxe 12-part narrative mystery game set in World War II. We're playing episode 1 here today. Let's recap where we are. We've been sent a letter saying that this person, Elizabeth Phillips, died in the war. They've gone back through the documents now that everything is declassified to try to get her documents to living relatives. We might be her last living relative. And they've come across some oddities in these documents they have, these letters that never actually got sent out. And the initial letters from Elizabeth to her friends are basically describing her part in the war effort. It sounds like what we've got is a whole bunch of women with language skills who know German, have been maybe German and other languages that form the Axis. What would you expect? Japanese, Italian, and German. She obviously speaks German. They've recruited her. We don't know exactly what she's doing, but we know it involves listening to audible speech in German and translating that. We've had a couple people mentioned. One of the German officers that she's transcribing is Holst with a nasally voice. We know she's working with a bunch of other women. They're in Latimer House. And then we know that she's reported dead on March 1945. So she arrives, we know, 13th of October 1942. 2.5 years later, she's reported dead, witnessed by someone who works in this same fake cover address, the supply depot at number 1 distribution center. You might think she's dead, except for this postcard, which is barely readable, the postmark, but actually the postmark is from the 9th day of August, 1945. So several months after she's reported dead comes this message signed L to Mr. and Mrs. Kruger in Chalfont, which you know is nearby Latimer House, and it's in code, and the message says, "I'm alive and well in Germany." So she's not dead. This is clearly Lizzie. This is clearly her handwriting. So Lizzie is alive. Now, it's possible, in fact, it seems likely, that she was sent on some secret mission into the heart of Germany, and this is her cover story, that she's dead. And the reason we think that is that she's been identified and signed, at least she's been signed for, by workers where she works. So that seems like they're in on it, that they've pretended to identify the body. Fractured skull, that seems like you should still be able to identify the body. So the fact that this person, C. Townsend, has claimed her seems like he's probably involved in this fake death so that she could run on this mission. We don't know who she's writing to, and we've also got another postcard not dated to someone it sounds like she had an affair with, if this is all on the up and up, which we don't know. Nearly has it all planned. I'm sure you remember her. So these are more cast of characters we're learning about. I'm surprised Latimer managed without her for the whole of October. So if we're keeping timeline stuff, this person, Neely, who's doing the planning, was gone for all of October. She's back now. Kendrick agrees with everything. We don't know who that is. We're learning about all these different people. Kendrick, Neely, Dorothy. I wish just once that I could have seen you again. Remember me fondly, try to let me go. What we had was special, but everything must end one day. If you had to guess, this doesn't seem like a coded message. This seems like a message she's sending to someone she had an affair with. And she's describing that she's going to get sent off to Germany, perhaps. And she's writing goodbye. That's what it sounds like to me. So if we're keeping track of all these people, cast of characters we may fill in later, I'm going to show you the notes that we keep. We sometimes use some text, Google Docs notes when we play the longer games, and Anna has been keeping these for us so far. Victim Elizabeth Phillips worked in Latimer House writing letters to Penny and her mother. Holst is mentioned. Captain Solomon, Dorothy, Neely. Neely is the girl with curly hair. A mysterious new girl whose name is redacted. She wants to get transferred. Carl, Kendrick agrees about plans. Let me go. That's right. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Kruger, coded message. I'm alive and well in Germany. Fake death certificate. Relative C. Townsend. I don't think he's a relative. So thank you, Anna, for keeping those notes. He's not a relative. It says address of relative or friend, C. Townsend, and he's in the supply department. So this is going to be a friend, a coworker. And he has positively identified the body, which means he's in on this fake death. Okay, so now we're going to spend some time. We've gone through the documents. And I like this gentle introduction of Box 1 as sort of introducing us to the case. And now we're going to spend some time on this newspaper. There's quite a bit to read here. If you think you don't want to sit here while I read this for the next hour or so, you could leave now and come back and check out the notes when we begin our next stream. But we're just going to take our time and read this now. I hope you've got your tea and coffee, and we can just take our time here. Okay, so I've got the brightness down a little bit better so we can see a little bit better. Okay, so let's just appreciate. This is about as real as any newspaper I've seen in any game. It's from the Daily Telegraph, the 4 a.m. edition. Printed in London and Manchester, 1.5D. Daily Telegraph and Morning Post. London, Tuesday, May 18th, 1943. So if we're keeping timelines, we might want to eventually list all the things we have with dates on them. Okay, RAF blows up 3 key dams in Germany. Devastation sweeps down the Ruhr Valley. Bridges and power plants engulfed. Advanced flooding still spreading fast. And we've got a little picture of, looks like here's the dam. That's where they blew it up. The Great Moon Dam, after RAF, which is the Royal Air Force, has done their work and made a breach nearly 300 feet wide. The Moon Dam after the RAF raid. Okay, let's read this article. See if I can get this where we can read it together. With one single blow, the RAF has precipitated what may prove to be the greatest industrial disaster yet inflicted on Germany in this war. A force of Lancasters, loaded with mines and with crews specially trained for the task, early yesterday morning attacked and destroyed the great dams on the Möhne and Sorpe rivers, tributaries of the Ruhr, and also the dam on the Eder River. Today, walls of water sweeping down the Ruhr and Eder valleys are carrying everything before them. The Air Ministry announced last night that a partial reconnaissance of the Ruhr Valley and the district near the Eder Dam shows that the floods are spreading fast. The waters are sweeping down the Ruhr Valley, it stated. Railways and road bridges are broken down. Hydroelectrical power stations are destroyed or damaged. A railway marshalling yard is underwater. The floods from the breached Eder Dam are already as great as the floods in the Ruhr Valley, but the country here is flatter and the water likely to spread over a greater area. There are some amazing documentaries. I don't know where I saw it, but I'm sure you can find them on YouTube about these bouncing bombs that they used and figured out they could use against dams that would skip along the water so that they wouldn't have to drop the bomb exactly on the bridge or a dam. They basically drop it and it skips along the water till it hits the bridge. I wonder if we could pull one of those up. Let's just see for fun if we can. Let's see. Now we want to. I don't want you to. Okay, let's see. Bouncing bombs, World War II. Building of the bouncing bomb. Let's see if we can open one of these. I don't know what we're looking at here. Do we get to see it bounce? We get to see it explode, but not bounce. The dam busters. All right, well, you'll have to go check that out on your own then. But pretty cool stuff how they figured out they could do that. All right, let's continue reading here. Germans admit heavy casualties. The German communique yesterday, admitting the 2 dams had been damaged, it did not specify the area, said heavy casualties were caused among the civilian population by the resulting floods. That was as much as the people of Germany were allowed to know, and there were no reference to the disaster in later news broadcasts from Berlin. The pilots, on their return, reported seeing in the moonlight huge breaches in the dams with water bursting through. They saw a power station below the Mon Dam swept away in the flood and 30-foot-high wall of water rumbling down the Eder Valley. Reporting personally to Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Harris, Chief of Bomber Command, Wing Commander G.P. Gibson, who led the raid, said the immediate results of the destruction of the dams were far beyond their expectations. Wing Commander Gibson was the first to attack the Mon Dam. After dropping his load, he flew up and down, drawing the enemy's fire to give the following planes a better chance of success. It was not until the 4th load had been dropped that the dam was first breached. Air reconnaissance yesterday showed that there was a 100-yard gap in it. There was no indication last night of the number of Lancasters engaged, but although the loss of 8 machines and their crews on an attack on such an objective must be regarded as fairly heavy, the complete success of the operation tells its own story of the worth of the sacrifice. Paralyzing industry. Apart from the cumulative damage caused by the floods, there is a firm basis for believing that the industry of the Ruhr will be partially paralyzed by the destruction of the 3 dams. All were full with the winter and spring rains. Even if repaired within a few months, if such a thing were possible, there would not be enough water to bring them into even partial use again until spring. It took 2 years to fill the Sorp Reservoir, the smallest of the 3, when it was first constructed. Some idea of the flood of water released by the destruction of the dams can be judged from the fact that the 202 million ton capacity of the Eder Reservoir would have been enough to supply the whole of London for 150 days, even in peacetime. The Eder Reservoir near Hemfurth, 2 miles south of Waldeck, is the largest in Germany. It has a surface area of 4.5 square miles. Its main purpose was to prevent flooding in the Weser and Fulda valleys in winter and maintain the rivers at navigable depth in summer. It was also used to feed the Elms and Weser Canal to operate several important power stations. Kassel, 30 miles below the dam, is mostly low-lying, and its important locomotive works and aircraft factories are gravely threatened. The half-mile-long Mon Dam near Soest is 26 miles east of the small manufacturing town of Dortmund and was built before the last war to confine a reservoir 6 miles long by 2 miles wide and holding 134 million tons of water. It was the biggest source of water for the industries of the Ruhr, and the demands of which are enormous. It was largely to meet the needs of the Ruhr's coke ovens and foundries that the dam was built. The Sorp Dam lies 6 miles south of the Möhne Dam on the Sorp River, also a tributary of the Ruhr. It was used in conjunction with the Möhne Reservoir to control the Ruhr Valley's supplies. The Daily Telegraph air correspondent writes, "Where the mines dropped a little short when the Lancasters were flying towards the dams, their forward momentum would carry them against the concrete. In any," and then it continues on page 6. I don't know if we have page 6, but here's a map of this area. So that was the dam they hit. They hit 3 dams. 1, 2, 3, all dealing with this river. And you could see why they hit them. They're so important for the industry. The rail, the coke foundries. Huge part of war is cutting off supply systems and manufacturing systems of the enemy, and that's clearly what the British are doing at high cost. Let's see if we have the end of that article, page 6, or if this newspaper ends before there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess we do. Continued, here it is. Even the flow of water to the reservoir would have much the same effect. The mines could be designed to come to rest a number of feet below the water's surface by means of hydrostatic control, and so explode at the right place. The outstanding success achieved suggests a well-planned operation which probably considered these and similar prospects. So if you watch those Dam Buster documentaries, how these bombs are designed to hit at exactly the right place to cause them to collapse. All right, and then we've got more articles related to this. Pilot sees breach in dam by moonlight. Success at 4th attempt. The full official account of the raid on the dams in southwest Germany was given by the Air Ministry last night in the following statement. It's going to be a statement by Gibson. For many weeks, picked Lancaster crews have been training for one operation. They worked in secrecy on a bomber station, which, as far as possible, was cut off from any contact with the outside world. Only about a half dozen other men in the whole of Bomber Command knew what they were doing. In the early hours of yesterday morning, when weather and light were exactly right, they carried out the operation. Its purpose was to subject the whole Ruhr Valley to almost as severe an ordeal as it has undergone by fire in the last 3 months, and to do the same for another industrial area further east. These picked men, under the command of Wing Commander G.P. Gibson, DSO and Bar, DFC and Bar, went out to attack 3 huge water barrage dams. 2 of them were on the rivers Möhne and Sorp, tributaries of the river Ruhr, and the other on the river Eder. The Lancaster crews knew how much depended on their success. The opportunity might never come again, and it was an opportunity, as they knew, of doing as much damage as could be done by thousands of tons of bombs dropped on many nights running. Disastrous effects hitting Ruhr industry. The Möhne and Sorp dams control 70% of the water catchment area of the Ruhr basin. Before they were built, the Ruhr was always apt to run short of water in a dry season. The Sorp reservoir alone takes 2 or 3 years to fill. If the reservoirs were suddenly emptied, the floods that resulted would be as serious as the subsequent shortage of water. 134 million tons of water would pour out from the Möhne reservoir alone. The effects of both flood and shortage of water might be disastrous. There are 300 and more waterworks and many pumping stations in the Ruhr Valley. And here we have Wing Commander Guy Penrose Gibson, G.P. Gibson. DSO, and bar. I don't know what the bar means. And DFC and bar. We don't know what that means. Does someone know? 25 years old. That's what life was back then. Now you're 25 years old. You got a YouTube channel. There, you're 25 years old. You're commander of the Bombers Brigade. Not a good comparison. Doesn't look good as a comparison. After dropping his mines on the Mon Dam, he flew up and down to draw the enemy's fire. He was a night fighter pilot before transfer to Bomber Command, completed over 175 sorties. Places he has bombed include Berlin, Stuttgart, Genoa, Milan, Turin, Le Creusot, and Danzig, Germany and Italy. Born at Simla, India, educated in England. Okay, this article is continued. Someone is... let's see. People in the channel think she was involved in this operation, maybe. Where does this continue? I guess these are our continuing, but this is from page 1, column 1. Well, let's go back and we'll get to it when we get to it. Let's see, where shall we continue? All right, so we read about that. They knocked the power plant. Page 6, column 3. Oh, here we go. Continuing this story. Pilot sees dam breach by moonlight. Those would very seriously affect the supply of water for industrial processes. Thermoelectric power stations would have no cooling water, and many hydroelectric power stations along the Ruhr Valley would be affected. River and canal traffic is of vital importance to all the industries of the Ruhr. With these dams gone and water pouring from the deep lakes behind them, the River Ruhr itself might become unnavigable. Water level in the canals could not be maintained. The water level falls too low, you can't get a boat across it. Finally, you can't get a ship across it. Finally, there is the possibility that important industrial areas in the Ruhr would themselves actually be flooded. Threat to Kassel. Water transport problem. Before the construction of the Eder Dam, the reservoir is the largest in Germany and contains 202 million tons of water. The rivers Eder and Weser regularly cause serious floods. The breaking of the dam would probably flood parts of Kassel, including important industrial areas as well as of towns beyond. Agricultural districts along the Weser would also be inundated. Several hydroelectric stations would be affected, 4 of them of considerable value to the electrical supply of the whole district. As with the other 2 dams, floods would do the first damage and the loss of water the rest. The primary object of the reservoir is to store water to compensate the River Weser for water taken from it for the huge Midland Canal, the main artery for waterborne traffic from west to east and the link between all the main navigable rivers west of Berlin. Without the reservoir, there would not be enough water for both the Weser and Midland Canal. Navigation on one or the other, and probably both, would be seriously affected. That's fascinating. I didn't know that's how it worked. 300-foot mine burst. Wing Commander Gibson, who was also in charge of the whole operation, personally led the attack on the Mon Dam. After he had dropped his mines, he flew up and down along the side of the dam to draw fire of the light anti-aircraft guns emplaced on it. Guns were poking out of slots in the walls of the dam. His gunners fired back as the Wing Commander repeatedly flew through the barrage, and this had the effect of making some of the enemy gunfire waver. A flight lieutenant who dropped his mines after latter was in a better position to see what actually happened to the dam. He says, I was able to watch the whole process, he said. The Wing Commander's load was placed just right, and a spout of water went up 300 feet into the air. A second Lancaster, that's a plane type, attacked with equal accuracy, and there was still no sign of a breach. And I went in and we caused a huge explosion up against the dam. It was not until another load had been dropped that the dam at last broke. I saw the first jet very clear in the moonlight. I should say that the breach was about 50 yards wide. One pilot said that the jets of water were so powerful that they were hurtling out horizontally for 200 feet. A flood 7 miles long. A sergeant with a DFM, don't know, was the last to see the Mon Dam. He was returning from the attack on the Sorp Dam. Found some difficulty in finding the right end of the reservoir, he said, because the shape had already changed. There was already a new sheet of water 7 miles long, and the water was spreading fast. To make the repeated attacks which finally broke down the dam, each crew had to attack with extraordinary coolness and persistence in the face of the defenses coming down as low as 100 feet or less. When we attacked, one of the pilots said you could see that the crown of the wall was already crumbling. There was a tremendous amount of debris at the top. Our loads sent up water and mud to a height of 1,000 feet. The spurt of water was silhouetted against the moon. It rose with tremendous speed and then fell gently back. You could see the shock wave at the base of the jet. A wave 30 foot high. The Eater Dam was breached in 2 places. There was a hole about 30 feet below the top of the dam wall and another gap to the eastern side of the dam. A torrent of water poured through, and below a wave some 30 feet high rushed through the valley. Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Harris, C&C, Bomber Command, and the air officer commanding the bomber group to which the Lancasters belong were waiting at one bomber station to hear the first news when the crews returned. Wing Commander Gibson made his report to them. We had high hopes, he said, but the immediate results of breaching the dams were far beyond our expectations. Reconnaissance aircraft were busy yesterday. Their photographs show the water still pouring out. The power station below the Mon Dam has been engulfed and swept away. So far, we only know the beginning. A breach 100 miles long, attacked with mines. The first Air Ministry communique, issued shortly after Sir Archibald's speech, said, in the early hours of the morning, in a force of Lancasters attacked with mines the dams at the Mon and Sorp reservoirs. These control 2/3 of the water storage capacity of the Ruhr Basin. Reconnaissance later established that the Mon Dam had been breached over a length of 100 yards, and the power station below had been swept away by the resulting floods. The Eater Dam, which controls the headwaters of the Weser and Fulda Valley and operates several power stations, was also attacked and was reported as breached. Photographs show the river below in full flood. The attacks were pressed home from a very low level with great determination and coolness in the face of fierce resistance. A lake as large as Windermere, from a correspondent. When a German friend took me to see the Mon Dam a year or so before the war, it occurred to me that here was a Hollywood director's ideal setup for a realistic picture of the flood. He had only to buy the whole concern and breach the giant walls of the dam, and the result would be as awe-inspiring and terrific as the deluge that happened to Noah. The whole area would soon be submerged, my friend said. Now the RAF has done it. I can imagine the cataract burling itself down the valley of pine forests, a great cataclysm of water like the Severn bore after a Niagara start. For the reservoir is a gigantic artificial lake about as large as Windermere. Let's see. Chat says DFC means Distinguished Flying Cross. DSO is Distinguished Service Order. The bars are part of the medal. Okay, so they're talking about the awards, the badges that these different people have been awarded. Anna says, looks like only pilots in this attack know Elizabeth, unless Elizabeth helped them plant. Remember, someone may have to shine. I forget if they shine a light, like a laser, where they want the bombs to land. We may have to look at some of these documentaries on the dam busters to see if we can see that. I can't remember. I know the bombs bounced. That's the part that I remember. Are we going to get to see a picture of some of this? Oh, look, that's talking about our attack. I can't play you the audio because YouTube will freak out. Can we see the bouncing bombs? No, this is just animation of planes. Okay, you can't search on YouTube on the fly. It doesn't work. Okay, but anyway, let me get back to the chat for a second about the bars. Okay, wouldn't the bombers have to be guided in by spotters on the ground? Okay, that's what I was saying, possibly. And then we're still talking about DMK in the coded letter. I still think that might be not part of the code, and there may be nothing for us to find there, but I was thinking DMK might be just Kendrick's initials because the message was for him. Maybe. Okay, let's continue reading here. U.S. pit truce extended from our correspondent, New York, Monday. Mr. Lewis, president of the United Mine Workers Union, has given an assurance that the 15-day coal truce, which expires tomorrow night, will be extended until the end of the month. This followed an appeal made by Mr. Harold Ickes, United States Secretary of the Interior, that work should continue. In this way, he said, the path will be opened for immediate collective bargaining. Earlier today, the War Labor Board issued a statement on Mr. Lewis's decision not to obey the board's instruction to attend a meeting to arrange for a renewal of bargaining. The issue, said the War Labor Board, was whether Mr. Lewis is above and beyond the laws which apply to all other citizens of the United States. The statement accused Mr. Lewis of defying the established procedure of the government and so giving aid and comfort to our enemies. Looks like they're talking about strikes during the war. The government is saying you can't strike. This is a matter of national security. All right, let's move along to our other articles. A bomber, CNC, praised. Major victory. Air Chief Marshal Sir Arthur Harris, CNC, which was one of our awards is going to be. Bomber Command has sent the following message to the air officer commanding the bomber group whose Lancasters attacked the dams in Germany early yesterday. Please convey to all concerned my warmest congratulations on the brilliantly successful execution of last night's operation. To the air crews, I would say their keenness and thoroughness in training and their skill and determination in pressing home their attacks will forever be an inspiration to the Royal Air Force. In this memorable operation, they have won a major victory in the Battle of the Ruhr, the effects of which will last until the Boche is swept away in the flood of final disaster. Late news, London alert. Raiders passed, sounded some time afterwards. Later, third alert was sounded. Enemy aircraft were over southeast England. High explosive bombs dropped at one coastal town. Italian Chief of Staff resigns. Moscow radio last night quoted Bern reports that General Ambrosio, Chief of Italian General Staff, has handed resignation to Mussolini, who had asked him to withhold it until the staff had been reorganized. Roosevelt may veto tax plan bill. Washington, Tuesday. President Roosevelt is hinting strongly at a veto if Congress approves the modified income tax plan, pay-as-you-go, bill which has been approved by the Senate. He declared that he would not acquiesce in the elimination of whole year's tax burden on upper-income groups during a war period, said the Associated Press. Okay, it's clear it's going to take us a while to get through this, huh? Bordeaux is without gas or water. Liberators pound U-boat bases. The U-boat bases at Bordeaux, Lorient, and Caraman, all on the Atlantic coast of France, were the targets for a large number of American bombers in daylight yesterday. 4 heavy and 10 medium bombers are missing. Vichy Radio stated last night that 148 people were killed and 228 injured at Bordeaux. Reports from Paris said that the town was without electricity, gas, and water. It was announced by American Army headquarters last night that the attack on Bordeaux was made by a heavy force of liberators. Their round trip was about 1,000 miles. Brigadier General J.P. Hodges, commanding a liberator wing, said it was the first time the liberators had attacked in force. So for those of you who don't know your history, and I'm one of those who don't know much history, but basically France was invaded by Germany and taken over. So the Vichy French are the German placed rulers of France now. The government in France installed by Germany. So U.S. is bombing the French fleet here because France is now occupied by Germany. Okay, the bombing was something. Bordeaux, which is something harbor, and one of the largest harbors in the world, has a docking area of 7 miles. It is now used chiefly as a U-boat building and outfitting center. The U-boats are the submarines, German submarines. Pilots described bombing pattern as good. The enemy, they said, was caught flat-footed. There was little fighter or flak opposition. Power plant bombed. Other bombers bombed the harbor installations and power supply of Lorient and submarine pens at the adjacent base of the Caramon. The power plant at Lorient contains the transformers essential for the entire dock area. Visibility was perfect, and returning crews described the bombing results as excellent. One pilot said that there must have been at least 100 enemy fighters up. The bombers exacted a heavy toll of those. RAF, Dominion, and Allied fighters in supporting operations destroyed 2 enemy fighters without loss, while American Thunderbolt fighters carried out an offensive sweep over the Cherbourg Peninsula later in the afternoon. German radio, which stated that the British and American Air Forces attacked bases on the Atlantic front, said that 17 of the raiders were shot down. Enemy convoy attacked. 2 enemy merchant ships were hit with torpedoes and 3 escort vessels set on fire when Bew fighters attacked a northbound convoy off the Dutch coast. Ventura bombers did considerable damage to Caen airfield, and escorting Spitfires shot down 5 German planes for the loss of 1. 2 more enemy planes were shot down in other operations. Coal emergency in Canada. Mr. King's warning. Ottawa Monday. Mr. Mackenzie King, the Canadian Prime Minister, told the House of Commons today that a national emergency had been declared to exist in the production of coal in Canada. An order is expected in a few days to compel men with coal mining experience to take employment within the mines. Canada faces the possibility of being 4 million tons short of her coal requirements next year. This morning's war news. Germany. Devastation spreading down Ruhr and Eder valleys after destruction by Lancasters above Mons, Thorpe, and Eder dams. Pilots' accounts. Italy. RAF over Rome after moonlight raid on airbase. France. Heavy day raids on Bordeaux docks and Lorient. Sea. 2 blockade runners trapped by the Navy scuttle themselves. So, that couple boats blew themselves up so they wouldn't be captured. Atlantic air cover against U-boats now extends almost from port to port. United States, Mr. Mackenzie King goes to Washington for Churchill-Roosevelt talks. Resumption of pit strike threatened. Combined operations, 400 Germans killed when destroyer Campbelltown was blown up in St. Nazaire raid. Labrador allies huge new airbase. Tunisia, Navy seizes island off Cape Bon. Marshal Mess, Italian CNC in North Africa arrives. What did we say CNC was? Something in command. Something in command. Corporal in command, whatever it is, something in command. Russians shelling Sevitsk on southwestern base of Germans' Oral Seant. Okay, we're going to finish reading the front page here, and then we're going to decide how we want to, whether we want to keep reading the rest of this paper, take a break, save it for another day. 2 blockade runners sunk in Atlantic, scuttled by Nazi crews. Cruiser patrols of the Royal Navy have intercepted 2 more blockade runners bound for Germany and heavily laden with cargoes from the Far East. The enemy vessels scuttled themselves after interception. An Admiralty communique stated last night that one of them, the German armed ship Silvana, Silvaplana, 5,000 tons, carried a valuable cargo of rubber and tin. She was sighted by HMS Adventure, Captain R.G. Bowes Lyon, about 200 miles off Cape Finisterre and ordered to stop within a few minutes. And even before the Silvaplana had lost way, her personnel proceeded to abandon ship. Flames enveloped the blockade runner's bridge, and a series of internal explosions rent her hull. Something burned up. With her ammunition exploding, she heeled over and sank stern first. The entire ship's company of the Silvaplana, including more than 100 personnel of the German Navy, were rescued by HMS Adventure. Panic follows summons. The other blockade runner, the German motor vessel Regensburg, 8,000 tons, was intercepted between Greenland and Iceland by HMS Glasgow, Captain E.M. Evans Lam, patrolling in the Denmark Strait. She was brought to with warning shots. Can someone remind me with what HMS is? We see that on ships, and I can't remember what it stands for. Signs of panic were immediately apparent on board the Regensburg, a number of her company being seen to jump over the side. The enemy then signaled, "I stop," and HMS Glasgow ceased fire. Continued on page 6, column 6. Let's see what the chat says. Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief. All right, so the audience is on our case, talking about our case, which I guess I would be too, except I'm reading, is the idea that Elizabeth could be listening to military broadcasts and passing information through coded posts. Absolutely, she could be, but yeah, she could be listening. She could be in Germany, eavesdropping on German communications. Certainly a possibility. Soon after, the Regensburg fired scuttling charges and her crew abandoned ship in boats and rafts. Every effort was made by the ship's company and HMS Glasgow to rescue the Regensburg's personnel, adds the Admiralty, but owing to the effects of icy water and heavy weather, only 6 of a large complement survived. It is calculated that in the last 6 months, cargoes bound for Germany and intercepted on the high sea included no less than 30,000 tons of rubber, 5,000 tons of tin, 25,000 tons of edible oils, smaller but equally important quantities of tungsten and quinine. Cargoes of heavy machinery, machine tools, engineering components, and dyestuffs consigned to Japan have also been intercepted. It would be difficult to overestimate the importance of intercepting these blockade runners, which may be described as #1 priority ships. From the southwest Pacific to the Biscay coast, the distance is about 12,000 miles. The blockade runners have the choice of the southern Pacific or Indian Ocean routes, and it is possible for them to make the whole voyage without coming within 600 miles of an Allied base. Urgent supplies. Not only are the ships themselves of a type which Germany can ill afford to lose, but it must be remembered that their cargoes are specially selected by Germany to meet her most urgent needs. The value of these cargoes to Germany is in direct proportion to the risks taken in trying to secure them. Although Germany produces large quantities of Buna, rubber substitute, she has need of between 1,000 and 1,500 tons of pure rubber a month. The cargoes of rubber intercepted on the high seas in the last 6 months, therefore, amount to nearly 2 years' supply of Germany's minimum requirements. One of the reasons why Germany requires pure rubber is because Buna does not resist heat well and is therefore not good insulating material. Fascinating how much effort goes into trying to keep a country from getting supplies. Okay, so we read that paper. Let's continue on. Not too much left of this front page here. U-boats still checked. Colonel Knox's comment from our own correspondent in Boston Monday. Colonel Knox, Secretary of the Navy, stated at his press conference here today that generally the picture is improving for the United Nations in submarine warfare. although it is subject to ups and downs. March, he said, was very bad. April was a good month, and May had been satisfactory so far. The Navy, he continued, has by no means reached its peak. There will be twice as many ships in use at the end of 1943 as at the end of 1942. Every type of vessel is increasing ahead of schedule. The number of aircraft carriers, he added, would also increase many times by the end of the year compared with the end of 1942. Addressing the Boston Advertising Club at luncheon today, Colonel Knox said, "Whether you go east or west, north or south, the initiative now is in the Allied hands." When war broke out, he added, the United States was wondering when the Axis was going to strike next. Come what may now, it will be the Allies who will strike, not the Axis. Attu battle satisfactory, says Colonel Knox from our own correspondents. Washington, Monday. The Navy Department, in one of its shortest communiques of the war, announced tonight that operations against Japanese on Attu Island in the Aleutians are continuing. No further details were given, but Colonel Knox, Secretary of the Navy, said in Boston today that the battle was moving along satisfactorily. The only other indication of its progress was a radio talk last night by a War Department spokesman, Colonel Ernest Depuy. He said that operations were going according to plan on Attu and that Kiska was next on the agenda. Earlier today, Tokyo Radio quoted a Japanese army spokesman as saying that the attacking United States forces were landing a steady stream of reinforcements on the island under cover of naval and air bombardment. General Quinan. General Sir Edward Pellew Quinan, who was given the command of the new 10th Army based in Iraq and Persia in February last year, has been appointed to the command of the Northwestern Army in India. He succeeds General Sir Cyril Noves, who, says Reuters, has been compelled to go on leave on account of ill health. Blackout London, 10:33:59. So, is this, and those of you who know your history better, is this telling us when London is going to shut off electricity? And is it... So 5/19 is going to be May 19th. That's tomorrow. I think it's saying at 10:33 a.m. because this paper is May 18th, 5/18. Let's see if the chat has any theories about that. All right, let's keep reading. We'll come back to that. Mr. Mackenzie goes to Washington. From our own correspondent, Washington, Monday. Mr. Mackenzie King, the Canadian Prime Minister, left Ottawa today for Washington for conferences with Mr. Churchill and Mr. Roosevelt. Mr. Churchill and the President resumed their talks at the White House today, in accordance with Mr. Roosevelt's request to the press to put a lid on news of these discussions over the weekend. Nothing further can be said about the Prime Minister's appointments during the past 2 days. According to reports from London, a newspaper, not the Daily Telegraph, has suggested that the United Nations commander for the invasion of Europe has already been chosen, and that General Alexander would be the logical choice. One Washington newspaper reproduces this report under the headline, "One Vote for Alexander." Message to Stalin. President Roosevelt, it was disclosed at the White House tonight, has told Mr. Stalin that it is reasonable to expect further success on both the eastern and western fronts. He has also expressed the hope to General Chiang Kai-shek that the Allied forces will take the initiative in Asia in the near future. 2 more alerts in London. An alert was sounded in London last night, the second in succession. A few enemy aircraft were reported, and there were some bursts of gunfire. The Raiders' pass signal was sounded shortly afterwards. The Raiders' pass signal, in other words, the planes they sound an alarm when the fighters German fighters are over London, and then they sound the Raiders pass signal after the planes have gone past. It's safe to come out. The Raiders pass signal was sounded shortly afterwards. Night fighters were up. A bomb dropped in London's suburb damaged 2 houses and trapped their occupants, one of whom was feared dead. Nearly 2 hours later, London had a second alert. Okay, we've got some advertisements here. Energy in a can, Heinz 57 varieties, soups, baked beans, salad, cream, and mayonnaise. It is natural enough that the bulk of Heinz famous foods should now appear in wardrooms and mess stocks or at dusk beneath the shadow of a tank. But the home larders still have their share. Good rich foods made from the finest ingredients obtainable can still be yours. And with a can or two of Heinz oven-baked beans or perfect soups in the house, you can always put up a memorable meal for the war workers of the family. And then, Celanese still means quality. Celanese utility fabric. Use a cool iron. Look for this tab in utility garments. I felt a little twinge of fear when they made undies go austere, but now I see I can't complain. It's pretty plain. They're pretty plain. So I think this is probably a reference to certain fabrics being needed for war efforts. So like, okay, the underwear can't be made out of cotton anymore. So it's made out of Celanese or something like that. Okay, we got a little bit more on the front page and we're done. RAF attack base 15 miles from Rome. Hangars left in flames. Feeble ground defenses. From W.E. Mundy, Daily Telegraph special correspondence, Allied Health Headquarters, North Africa, Monday. They're talking about nylon and silk, says Logan. You mean you can't use nylon and silk anymore because then it's needed in the war effort, or they need the manufacturing plants, so you can't manufacture those items anymore, something like that. Chat can fill me in. There's 2 kinds of things that happen when there's a big shift in the country to a war effort. One is that you have to ration stuff because it's needed for the war effort. And the other thing is all the heavy machinery in the country has to shift into making equipment for war. And so if you needed that heavy machinery for civilian materials, then it's not available anymore. Okay, British Wellington bombers of the Northwest African Air Force flew over Rome last night, but dropped no bombs on the city. They had none to drop. The target for all their bombs was the Italian seaplane base at Lido di Roma, 15 miles southwest of the capital a few minutes earlier. So bright was the moon that over Lido di Roma, the Wellingtons were able to employ tactics usually associated with speedy daylight fighter bombers. One made 4 separate runs over the target, the last being at only 750 feet above the ground. Other Wellingtons, having dropped their bomb loads, swept in twice at altitudes between 400 and 500 feet to machine gun planes lined up in front of hangars. They shot up the planes in the hangars. Pilots reported that the burning hangars looked like frameworks of twisted steel. Axis opposition from ground defenses was almost non-existent, and no enemy fighter plane was seen during the whole trip. Lido di Roma is close to the ancient anchorage of Ostia, at the mouth of the Tiber. It is connected with Rome by a fine highway built by Mussolini's orders. Mussolini is the leader of Italy. Our bombers, as they swept over Rome, could see the buildings of the blacked-out capital clearly in the moonlight. The Colosseum and the Via Imperiale were easily recognizable. Gasworks blown up. On Saturday night, our Wellingtons were over Trapani in western Sicily, and members of the crews reported that there was a huge explosion in the center of the town. Some of the bombs hit the gasworks, and other hits were observed near the railway station and barracks. During daylight yesterday, coastal Air Force planes patrolling the coasts of Sardinia, Corsica, Sicily, and southwest Italy encountered and shot down Jumel 52. It's a kind of Jumel. I think it's Jumel 52. 52. Others of our planes intercepted a Jumel 88 north of Bonn, Algeria, and destroyed it. Someone correct me if that's not. This is an abbreviation for a plane type. I think it's a Jumel, but someone can tell me. RAF long-range fighters attacked an enemy schooner off the east coast of Greece in daylight yesterday. The vessel was abandoned by its crew, was last seen listing badly. One smaller enemy sailing ship was also attacked and damaged. From these and other operations, 4 of our aircraft are missing. Let's see. Chat says, you couldn't bomb Rome in World War II. It was an open city. DJ Moneycut said, I found a real blackout announcement and posted it on the Discord. Cool, okay. No one has clarified whether that's the type of plane, was a Jumel or is a different acronym. I think it's disconnected from the chat. I'm going to restart here and see if that fixes it. Okay, last little bit here. This says, Italian crown prince's role. Ciano sees Pope. Madrid, Monday. Crown Prince Umberto has taken the place of King Victor Emmanuel at meetings of the Supreme War Council in Rome since the downfall of the Axis in North Africa, according to reports from good sources reaching Madrid. There is great political activity in the capital with lengthy consultations between the king, Crown Prince, and Mussolini. Ciano, recently appointed minister to the Vatican, is reported to have had a meeting with the Pope. The recent heavy bombings of such towns as Palermo in Sicily and Civitavecchia near Rome have caused what is described in reports reaching Madrid as considerable indignation and consternation. BUP, that's a acronym for, I don't know. I thought that was a English military acronym. Rome Cabinet in non-stop session, page 6. Anna says in the chat that you couldn't bomb Rome in World War II. It was an open city. The German planes were Junkers. I see. Maybe that's what they are. Junkers, maybe. Junkers. Okay, where was our Rome story? Page 6, home cabinet in non-stop session. Let's see, we read this story. We didn't take a look at this picture, though. It says, one of the crews who bombed Germany's greatest dams being interrogated after the raid. Sir Arthur Harris, Air Officer Commander-in-Chief, Bomber Command left, and the Honorable R.A. Cochrane, Air Officer commanding the group, stand in the background listening to the reports. Okay. We read these articles about the dam. Raid suggested by Axel. I'm not sure we read this. Let's see if we can't. Maybe it's time to take a little break. So we've got a little bit of the back page to read that continues some of our stories, which maybe we'll read. And then we're going to have to decide what we want to do here. Would be inclined, look at the amount of little text here. I mean, we wouldn't be expected to read through all this, so we don't have to read this, but we do have some other articles, ads we could look at. More stories, more war stories. You would imagine that makes sense. Your country at war, that's what you're focused on. But maybe we don't want to try to read all of this in this session, but sprinkle it out through future sessions a little bit. But I think maybe we should finish up the back page, at least our major stories. Maybe we'll leave the personals to scan through later. There's a question about who is the lady in the photo. I'm not sure there is a lady in this photo. It just kind of looks like, maybe it looks like a lady, but I don't think it is. Let's take a little break. Wait, why isn't that? Did I turn off the picture-in-picture? Okay, let's take a little break. We'll come back. We'll read the back page, and then maybe we'll talk about our experience with this first episode. We could open another box and spend another several hours going through it, but I think we'd be better off to piece this up and follow the episodes in boxes with episodes on YouTube. So I don't think we have that much time, that much more time to go to read the back page of this. We'll come back in 8 minutes and decide what you want to do. All right, we're back. We were just discussing in the chat what our plans should be here after we finish up the back page. There is a crossword puzzle. I actually scanned it if we want to work on it. Chat says, I'm pretty neutral on what to do with the rest of the session. We could see how close the paper is to when she was declared dead. Look at headlines, see if anything jumps out. Perry says, I'd like to look at the cover letter again to get a sense of what we think we're supposed to do. Well, let's talk about that for a second, because maybe we could take, before we get back into the paper, let's discuss this experience a little bit, because we've now been through the first box. You can see it's mostly, there's a lot of reading to be done in this paper, other than the documents we've already been through. A couple of things jump out. Most of the games we've played with that are a part of a series, like a 6-box series or a 10-box series, they're almost all structured where each box you get is semi-self-contained and has questions, an objective for you for that box. Often they take the form of each box you eliminate one suspect. Maybe the first box sets up the mystery, who killed this person, and then you're trying to solve it. And you're getting rid of suspects, typically. What's so fascinating here, and I think this matches a little bit of our expectations of this sort of slow, methodical burn of these Cozy Killer stories, is that there's no assignment. We haven't been told what to do. And this box doesn't have an assignment. There aren't questions for us. The cover letter basically sets up a narrative. We're getting these documents because this woman has died and they're going through them. And if we look at this, it does say that there's an investigation. Okay, so it says there's an ongoing effort. Our research team noticed some discrepancies. Requested we open an investigation. I have included a copy of Elizabeth's death certificate. A paper reproduced by the Memorabilia Pack Company, which was originally published around the same time as one of the dated letters. So the game is actually telling us this is a reproduced letter, newspaper, that was published around the time as one of the dated letters. So I guess that's right. It is a paper from this date. May 18th is the date of our newspaper. May 18th. So she's writing to Penny. In fact, this was the big chunk of thing. We want to read this again, this particular letter. But the point is, it just says they're going to do an investigation. Once you've reviewed the documents, you will understand why our research team have become so interested in Elizabeth's wartime records. We will be undertaking this investigation without any cost to yourself. We will remain in constant contact, keep you up to date with our findings. So we've just been told that an investigation is going on. We haven't been told that we're supposed to do anything. So that's a fascinating change from the other kinds of cases we've played. I think the other interesting thing here is this newspaper. I don't have a clear handle on whether this is a real newspaper that doesn't have planted stories, and it's just for context, or whether we're going to find specific clues in the paper related to our case. I think most of us here, I am really enjoying the deep, rich context setting of this case in World War II. This paper is really making me feel like we're in the war. Like, the more we read, it's a lot to read. Some people don't like this kind of stuff. To me, it's not just that it's fascinating, but it feels like mentally I'm invested in the war effort. I feel like we got to win this war. And I feel like we're properly positioned. Remember, this case was designed in England. I mean, our allegiances are clear here, and I do feel a strong allegiance to this effort. So that's quite cool. But I don't know if they're like, if we were playing a different game like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective or something, we might expect that when we stare at these personals, that there are going to be secret messages in a personals ad or something. I'm just not sure yet with this new system, Cozy Killer, that we've not played before, what to expect and whether or not there are those stories planted in here, or if this is just purely for atmosphere and theme. Does the chat have any, without, I mean, don't say anything if you know, but assuming no one in the chat knows, do you guys have any gut instincts about the newspaper? Is it merely a fully reproduced newspaper without clues hidden in it? Or is it constructed for this case with clues? And you could ask the same specific question about something like the crossword puzzle, which is partly filled in already. Is this significant to our case? Should we do that? I mean, should we do this? We could do this for fun, but do we have any expectations that we're going to find any clues here? Or is this just for context? Let's see what the channel thinks. Logan says, maybe peek at box 2, see if there's a clear path forward after we're done with the paper. Bigger stories than crossword puzzle. Planted info must be somewhere. Perry says, I think there must be something in the newspaper we need to find. Jonathan says, the fact that it seems to be tied to a letter makes me think there will be some clue in it, but it might just be a single article. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not going to be relevant to our case, or that we might not even find a story relevant to our case. I'm not sure if it's not going to be like a real world story. It does help to know. Well, think about this for a second. So much for the theory that she's in Germany, pointing, lasering the bombs, because here we have the letter. She was at her, she was at the place when this letter was. So here she is writing from Buckinghamshire on the date of this newspaper. Let's look at this again. It was lovely to see you the other week. No, we couldn't talk. So she's met her friend Penny again. It was nice to catch up. A promotion too. You look so smart with those extra stripes. Now it makes me want to read this more carefully now. I forgot to get the flashlight. Can anyone read that? I'm glad you got to meet Neely. Dorothy is a great cartoon. I'm sure you'd have loved her as well. One day we'll be able to visit London again by bus. Did you say your runner's name was Washington? Have we written that down, I hope? And then, does this continue, or is that 13 October? That's it. That's the entirety of this letter. That makes it even more important for us to see this. The letter from Germany, in German, which we read and translated, although I've forgotten, was 15 of October, 1942. So the first letters are when she just arrived. Those don't seem all that relevant. This one is 6 months later, 7 months later, on the day that this paper was. All right, we need to find this. We need to be able to read what this says here. I can scan this. I bet we can pick it out when I scan it. All right. So for those of you who go in the Discord after the stream, I'll try to scan this so we can read it more clearly, but some of you may be able to make it out. If you can't, we'll get a look at it. Do I have a flashlight here? No. All right, but we'll do this later. But anyway, so point is that she wasn't in Germany for this newspaper. So, but there may be a story related to why she went over. All right, let's look at the back of this paper. See what we haven't read here. So, continuing the story about the dam breach, we read that. We read all that. Did we read this part? Lake large as Windermere. Yes, we read that. We didn't read any of the in memoriams. Look at all the deaths. The more you work, the better sleep you need. You're not doing your bit if you're not really fit. Here are 2 scientific sleep tips to try out at tonight. See how much better they'll make you feel in the morning. Whatever your worries, think of something that makes you feel happy for at least half an hour before bedtime every night. Troubled sleep is unhealthy sleep. Make a night cup of Born Vita a regular habit. It will soothe you, help digestion, and calm your whole body. Cadbury's Born Vita. Still, only a fifth per half pound. Someone tell me how to translate that into pence and all that. Start taking these 2 hints tonight and you'll find they make a world of difference to your pep and go. So what is Born Vita? Will you look that up? I gotta find out a better way to do searches. What is Born Vita? There's no way that's gonna work. All right, let's Born Vita and Horlicks scam. Look at these. Born Vita and Horlicks is a scam. What is Born Vita? Is Born Vita good for your health? I don't want YouTube. I want searches. What is it? Born Vita? Bourn Vita. Born Vita is a brand of malted and chocolate malt drink manufactured by Cadbury, subsidiary, whatever. Okay, there you have it. So for those of you who want to be fully immersed in this game, see if you can get yourself some Born Vita or some malted milk for tomorrow's stream. All right, what else do we have here? This plan will bring you 240 pounds a year for life from age 55. All right, let's hear about this. Assuming your age to be 35 and you would like to provide for a private income of 240 pounds a year for life commencing at age 55, this is how the plan works out. You make a monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, or yearly deposits of an agreed sum to the Sun Life of Canada, the great annuity company. At 55 years of age, the Sun Life of Canada will start paying you an income for life of 240 pounds per annum. Or you can have 3,525 plus profits in lieu of the pension. This tells you how much longer they expect you to live past 55. Definitely less than 20 years. Income tax saved. On every deposit, you receive a rebate of income tax, a concession which will save you a considerable sum during the period. War risks cover available for civilians. 2,000 pounds for your family. Should you not live to the age of 55, 2,000 pounds plus accumulated profits will be paid to your family. Any age, any amount. The plan may be varied to suit other incomes and to provide a larger or smaller incomes, whatever amount you can save from £1 a month for your own and your family's future, this plan is the safest and most profitable you can adopt. 250 million in assets. The Sun Life of Canada has assets of over 15 million. It's the largest company of the British Empire transacting life assurance. So it's an annuity with a bonus life insurance plan. Let me check in with the chat. For the personals, we could look for names we know. All right, this channel is hot to solve mysteries. I'm just reading the paper here. Let's see what else we got. There are a couple more articles here on the back. Atlantic air cover almost port to port, closing the gap. Daily Telegraph reporter says, substantial progress has been made in providing air cover for convoys coming to Britain from across the Atlantic. Specially adapted Liberator bombers capable of flying more than 1,000 miles from their bases now protect our ships almost from port to port. This was revealed yesterday by one of the best-known pilots of Coastal Command, Squadron Leader D.J. Istott of Reading, who at the age of 22 has already been awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross and bar for his attack on U-boats. Holy cow, 22 years old. Can you imagine? In an interview in London, he said that we had not reached the stage yet when escorting aircraft from both sides of the Atlantic would meet in mid-ocean, but we were rapidly closing the gap. Last year, he admitted, the weather was unfavorable for U-boat hunting. Telltale Oil. That's the worst part of the game, he said. It's so difficult to be sure of a kill. The only way to tell something sometimes is by the oil floating on the surface, and we can't always hang around to watch results. U-boats, he added, were still reluctant to shoot it out. As soon as a bomber appears, they crash dive. Squadron leader Istott and his navigator, pilot officer DJ Appleton, have in the past 7 months made 19 attacks on U-boats. 1 million school meals a day. Daily Telegraph reporter. Schools all over the country are to be provided with kitchens complete and fully equipped, free of charge to the local education authorities. The intention is to ensure that a hot midday meal should be available for every child. Mr. Butler, speaking at the opening of the Darfield Senior School, built by the West Riding Education Authority, said arrangements were being made for the Ministry of Works to undertake the necessary building work, including the adoption of school buildings and the provisions of sculleries and small kitchens where needed. All capital expenditure to which authorities were committed after May 1st would be met in full by the government. Our target, he said, was originally 1 million dinners a day within the year. This we reached in 11.5 months. Okay. And then our last column of articles are here. Russian guns shell town in Orel Salyan. Nazi air raid losses from A.T. Collerton, Daily Telegraph correspondent, Moscow, Monday. Russian guns are roaring ever louder against the especially prepared enemy lines at Seversk, covering the southern end of the baseline of the Germans' Orel Salyan, south of Moscow. Behind the strategically vital sectors of this huge salient and the Russians' Kursk salient, I don't know what salient is, with which it is interlocked, intense activity prevails. It was announced here tonight that on Sunday, 60 German aircraft raided the area of Shigary, east of Kursk, in the Russian salient. Russian fighters and AA anti-aircraft batteries dispersed the greater part of the enemy planes. 16 German planes were shot down in air combats and 4 brought down by anti-aircraft fire. The Russians lost 2 planes. 8 German bombers renewed the attempt to bomb Shigary today, but 7 were brought down by Russian fighters. There were no Soviet losses. Blinding dust rises as the rival transport columns pass down the roads around and into the Kursk-Oral areas where the soil is light and dry. The German staff, always careful and thorough in preparing their skillful strokes, now seem committed to the greatest caution. Nevertheless, the enemy is as strong here in ground forces, including armor, as he was last autumn. Nazi reinforcements. If anything, the German infantry divisions have been reinforced. Although the Luftwaffe concentration is again impressive, the Germans are clearly worried about the air factor. At this rate, they risk losing the initiative. Any Russian attack will be part of a major general plan, doubtless aiming in its initial stage at recovering direct central rail and road communications of which the Red Army is still deprived. The Russians have now consolidated their new bridgehead across the Donets near Lysychansk to the north of the vital Donets basin. Pravda stated today that possession of this new springboard was complete. The Russians have taken more places on the west bank of the river. Tonight's late communiqué, received in London at 12:15 BST this morning, reported a number of enemy infantry and tank attacks in the Kuban, northeast of Novorossiysk, the Black Sea naval base. They were repelled with heavy losses. Local fighting on the Kalinin front northwest of Moscow and on the Volkhov front in the Leningrad area is also mentioned. Soviet reserve of our tanks. It was stated in London yesterday that it looked as if the Germans would attack in Russia. They could afford to do nothing else. But probably their communications are not as secure as they were a year ago, nor is it likely that the reserves are as well trained and mobile as they were then. Britain has sent several thousand tanks to Russia. It is encouraging that the Russians do not seem to have had to use them yet. 3 enemy ships sunk. United States submarines have sunk 6 Japanese ships and damaged another in the Pacific and Far East, a United States Naval Department communique announced yesterday. The vessels sunk include a Japanese destroyer and a small escort vessel. Okay, I believe that completes the major articles on the front and the back. Let us take a tour of, well, let's see, we've got a couple ads, and then let's take a tour of the newspaper. I'm inclined to, we've probably been reading newspaper for almost 2 hours now, an hour and a half. I'm inclined to save some for later rather than force us to chew down all of this in one shot. So I'd be inclined to stop here, but maybe we could take a look at it to see if anything jumps out. So here's an ad for Vinolia baby soap. Then we've got an ad here on war work now, on homework later. Robialac paints. What does that mean? These paints are being used for war now, and later you'll use it for your work, for your home. Okay, we've got a crossword puzzle. Something just occurred to me. I just assumed that these were answering these questions, but what if they're not? What if they're code put into our thing? So let's just look at one. 11 across is yield. Let me just see if that's the real answer to 11. Produce and yield, yes. Okay, so it does look like these are actually answers to these proper questions rather than just words shoved in as code. So we could try to do this, but I have no reason to think that. Here's a quick crossword. Today's solution, yesterday's solution. Okay, so here's the puzzle. Here's the solution to yesterday's puzzle. Here's a different kind of crossword. What's the difference between a quick crossword? Oh, it's all across? No. What's the difference between it? Just different number of things? Could you give us the crossword in one shot? Sure. So you could work on it. I don't know if you should be, I think we should try to do this together maybe, but here's your crossword. Let me just give you a little bit of tidbit of history. When Bletchley Park started decrypting Enigma, I don't know if they did other German codes at Bletchley Park, but this is where Alan Turing worked, and they broke the codes of the Enigma. One of the things they did was to recruit cryptographers. This is a little bit informal times before now you have specialists in cryptography that you would get from academia. But at the time of World War II, when they were breaking codes, they were just recruiting everyday people who might have good linguistic skills or mathematical skills. And one of the things they did, this English operation to break the codes, is they put crossword puzzles in the local newspaper. They put at least once a bunch of crossword puzzles that they thought whoever could figure these out would demonstrate good abilities to break codes. So they arranged with the newspaper, they put in these crosswords and had a contest run through the newspaper that got submissions by people, and they brought those people in, interviewed them, tested them, and hired them. Hired the ones that were best at the crossword puzzles. So I almost wonder if this is going to be related, is going to be either thematically about that, or on the really off chance this could be the actual puzzles they gave. But I think produce to yield seems like that's probably too easy. But try to avoid working on this offline for now. I mean, we've talked about this, the rules of this channel. You should not be working on things separately from when the channel works on them. But we may decide that it's okay for people to work on this offline if it's not critical. Maybe we'll go through this a little bit today if you want to spend some time at the end of the stream just for fun, trying to work it out. But don't be trying to solve that now while I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. That's the rule here of this channel. You cannot be like, all right, Jesse's just droning on. I'm going to work on the crossword puzzle. No, that is not how it works. You have to be synchronous with me if you want to keep playing this. Okay, so let's just glance through what else is in the paper. We've got stock markets articles, fashion article, closing prices of stocks, I guess. Article about, more business article about the mills, auctions, broadcasting schedule. These are jobs offered, situations, vacancy. So these all look like jobs you could apply for. Official appointments announced. We've got some ads for clothing. There's Selfridges, a famous real shop in England. Clothing, pencils, hotel ad. More article about the war. 40 Germans killed when the raid ship was blown up. More war stories about different attacks in different areas. Distinguished Flying Cross for pilot who saved Ceylon, captured in Japan. Doctor and his secretary sued. These are local stories. A couple of ads here. Don't listen to her. She runs a savings group. What does that mean? Oh, look, it's Nazi swastikas. The squanderer bug works for Hitler. Let's read this. What does this say? Don't listen to her. She runs a savings group. When your savings group secretary calls, there's always a third party present. That little saboteur, the squander bug, is with you doing his stuff. He can't bear to see you putting by a little fund for a rainy day. He hates to see money going to help the boys who are fighting. Of course, you're not going to listen to him. Savings certificates costing 15 shilling or whatever, worth 20, 60, and 10 years, increase free of income tax. They can be bought outright or by installment. So these are this whole thing that we're not familiar with now in our modern times, but back in World War II times, governments would issue war bonds that you would put your money into, and you're basically loaning your money to the government for a number of years to finance the war effort, and you're going to get back with some interest. But there's a huge effort. If you look at some of the political propaganda posters or political posters, you'll see support your country, buy war bonds, and all that kinds of stuff. Okay, railway stockholders, more ads, ration books. Let's look at this. This looks pretty cool. Here's an advertisement for the new ration books. Let's see what these look like. The new ration books cut out this guide for reference. This year you will get, at one visit, your food ration book. Hold on, let me just... Okay, let's see. What does the new ration books look like? This year you'll get at one visit your food ration book as well as your clothing book, bound together but detachable. And if you're over 16, a new identity card. Local advertisements and posters will tell you when and where to go. It will be no use writing to the distribution center for your books. What to do? Okay, let's see what to do. We get our ration book. 1. See that the particulars on your present identity card and the front of your present ration book are correct and agree. If not, take them both to the food office now. Make sure that page 38 has been properly filled in. Fill in page 3, the reference card. They have to ration supplies, so everyone goes on rations. Fill in page 3, the reference leaf of your present ration book, exactly as directed. Do not take it out. Disregard the printing on page 4, the back of the reference leaf of both the general book and the child's book. In the general book, right at the top of page 4, the name and address of the milk retailer with whom you are now registered. That is your present milk supplier. See left-hand diagram. Page 4, the child's green book, write the name and address of the milk retailer and the names and addresses of the meat and eggs retailer. Do not remove this leaf from the book. And here's a little diagram. Okay, you're supposed to write where you get your milk and your meat and your eggs. Okay. Look for announcements in your local papers and posters in your cinemas, post offices, and elsewhere, which will tell you where and when to go for your new ration book. It's no good going to any other place or at any other time. The new books and cards will be prepared and issued in alphabetical order of surnames. This will mean more than one visit if your household contains different surnames, but it will mean less waiting when you get there. Do not go when it is not your turn. Your new books will not be there, and you will waste your time and other people's. And do see that your present books are properly filled in as described above. Take your present ration book and identity card with you. A friend can go for you, but only at the same time and place advertised for your surname. Remember that it's no good going to any office except the one that will be shown opposite your initial in local announcements. This office will be situated in your local town food control area. That's from the Ministry of Food. Wow, how'd you like to live in those conditions? All right, so a bunch of local articles, none jump out at us. Article about Germany, maybe that's where she goes, but nothing Nothing seems to be about spies or listening. All right, let's take a look at the last other 2 pages of the paper, see if there's anything. Okay, we've got some notice about theaters and cinemas, what they're showing, public notices. I mean, this is all stuff we may want to look into on future streams when we have some time. Rumor, Week of War, Italian rumors. Food story, more story about the dams. I wonder if we shouldn't read this article about the Observer Corps. What is the Observer Corps? The editor of the Daily Telegraph. Sir, anxiety is being felt by many in the Royal Observer Corps and outside it at the changes that are being made in its constitution and working. Uneasiness first became apparent when the order was issued that men over 50 were to go, though owing to the difficulties of replacing these fully trained men, the order has not yet been fully carried out. The Corps has felt uneasy, wondering who would be the next to go. What is the Observer Corps? Doesn't say. I guess you would just be expected to know it. All right. More general articles. Nothing jumps out as being related to our case. Here's whole stuff about Italy, social events. The thing is, you wouldn't expect her to be getting secret messages in the newspaper. She's working for a spy organization. They have no need to put secret messages in the paper for her. Unless they're messages from Germany, right? Maybe that's something we can talk about. Like, you wouldn't put secret messages to her in the paper if she's working at a spy base. However, if she's a German spy, you might. But you'd have a hard time putting them in an English paper. Though maybe the personals, you could plant some information. All the more reason you wouldn't plant secret information in a crossword. That's too hard. You'd put it in personals. All right, let's just look at the last bits of this paper that we haven't seen yet. Allies' huge new air base in Labrador. More on general war stories, couple ads. Miscellaneous war stories, but nothing looking like spies. Not Navy seizes island off Cape Bon, North Africa. German ship liner sunk. Reprisal raid on London. Bus workers go back from strike. Couple more ads. That's it. Then we're back to our final page. Okay, so nothing jumped out as being relevant to our case. I'd like to suggest that rather than go through with a fine-tooth comb, we stop here with the paper. And give ourselves a little bit of time to chew on everything we've seen. If I had to guess, we have no reason to think that October 18th is May 18th is a special date, except for this line here. Oh, wait, it's a mention of the paper. I see the word paper here today. Okay, we need to decode this because I just see the word paper today. Something the paper today could be expecting some something. Okay, she's clearly talking about the paper. Here it is again, the paper. Okay, she's telling us what in the paper we have to worry about. Let me see if I can't see a little better if I look with the flashlight. If not, the scanner will help us. Let's see. Okay, I think I can read this better with a flashlight. Let me see. Can you read it through here better? Can you guys see better if I do this? There's probably some angle that makes it easier to read. I see in the paper today there will be expecting some news. They'll be expecting some new residents. I'm sure something will be very sure to leave the papers somewhere prominent for our guests to read. Okay. I see in the paper today, we will be expecting some new residents. I'm sure the colonel will be very sure to leave the paper somewhere prominent for our guests to read. Can someone transcribe that so we don't have to do it again? I'm going to read it one more time. I see in the paper today we will be expecting some new residents. I'm sure the colonel will be very sure to leave the paper somewhere prominent for our guests to read. So somewhere in today's paper, remember, this is 18 May, somewhere in today's paper is a story that's resulting in new residents at the place she's at. And he's at Latimer House. Does that mean there are new Germans that have been captured? And she's saying her colonel is going to leave copies of the paper somewhere for those people to see. It makes me think that what we're looking for is an article about captured Germans. So we did read a couple of papers about scuttled ships and how they captured a couple. So one candidate is the scuttled ships, right? It says they were rescued. 100 personnel of the German Navy were rescued by HMS Adventure. So here's one candidate. Maybe someone could write down that, where was this? 2 more blockade runners. Okay, so one possibility is these are the POWs that she's talking about. Page 6, column 6. Here. Her crew abandoned ship. They rescued them. They rescued some of them. The last 6 months, they're talking about it. Cargo, urgent supplies. Okay, so here's our one candidate so far of German POWs. Not sure why she would know they'd be brought to Latimer, but maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're bringing. But merchant ships, you wouldn't think would be of. You wouldn't think merchant ships would be good candidates to spy to check the knowledge of, right? They wouldn't be. They're military. We would be expecting something more specific, I would think. Like if they got if they sunk U-boat officer boats rather than merchant ships. But okay, that's our best candidate. But it could be that in one of these smaller stories is mention of POW. So let's look. How about this article here on the second page that we didn't read? 400 Germans killed when the raid ship was blown up. Commando's exploits when left behind. Doesn't really seem like it's our best candidate for POWs. Another thrilling Commando episode, some entirely new to the public, combined operations. Hillary St. George Sanders. None of the troops who went ashore at St. Nazaire came back with the attacking force. What happened to them? Something, but not all, is told in an account based on the reports of 3 men who escaped. Party was led. All the German forces fully aroused. They resolved to hack their way through the town. Germans were concentrating a force to mop them up. They ran the gauntlet. This is a raid inside Germany to blow something up. Okay, let's see. Detained ex-MP. An application by Mr. John Beckett, formerly MP for Peckham, for a writ of habeas corpus against the Home Secretary and the Governor of Brixton was dismissed. Obituary. None of these look like POWs. Let's see what this article it is. Someone who saved guy, crash after Genoa. Awards. So far, it still looks like our best shot are those merchant ships that got scuttled. Just general articles here. They don't seem to be about anyone traveling or captured or anything. New airbase. More bridge destruction. Sarah. Let's this article about saboteur graduates. A new group of more than 20 rigorously trained Nazi saboteurs will soon be graduated from Berlin's crack school for sabotage and loosed upon the world, said Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the G-Men, in a statement issued by the Office of War Information, asserting that some of these agents would undoubtedly try to enter the United States. Mr. Hoover urged every citizen to constitute himself an individual listening post. Sarah. She's just chewing on plastic. Why would they leave out the papers for POWs? I guess if you captured that's an interesting thought. Well, they're listening to Germans, so that's what makes me think they were Germans, POWs, but it's possible that they're also doing something else at Latimer House, and people who are coming there are Allied people for rest and recovery or something, but it doesn't seem like. Maybe you would leave out the papers to rub it in that here's your country's losing, etc. Okay, well, here's an article about capture of Germans. Let's read this. Maybe this is a better candidate. Navy seizes island off Cap Bon. Allied headquarters, North Africa, Monday. British naval units have occupied Zembra Island, 10 miles from Cap Bon Peninsula, capturing 190 Germans. A short distance off the island, 8 Germans and 2 Italian girls who had attempted to escape Sicily in a small barge were also picked up. The Germans were rowing the barge with garden spades. The Navy, searching the coves and islands along the Tunisian coast, is collecting the few scattered remnants of Axis troops still in hiding. When they found, they are eager to surrender. An armed party which landed on an island off Cape Farina near Bizerta was received with relief by the French lighthouse keeper and his assistant. They had been prisoners of 25 Axis soldiers hiding on the island during the last 6 days. Men well armed. The Axis troops were well armed with plenty of ammunition, but on seeing the destroyer approach, they crept out of nooks and crannies on the island with their hands up. They had a small boat and said they had hoped to reach Sicily. The Germans were from one of their crack motorized divisions. A major among them said they fled from the mainland to dodge the severe bombing and get a better chance to escape. They had plenty of good food. One German officer's kit contained a bottle of Eau de Cologne, a British chocolate, bully beef, sardines, Nottingham-made bootlaces, great quantities of coffee beans, and tobacco. The party had 200,000 francs. At Sidi Daoud, a small tunny fishing village near Cap Bon, scenes of desolation were met, caused by Allied bombers and the shells of the Navy. Tunny fish factory, in which Italians had been sheltering, showed many signs of bomb damage. Along the shore axis, light coastal batteries had been abandoned. A little odd. Eight Germans, 2 Italians who attempted to escape were picked up. They find them, and this guy seems to have... This is like what spies carry. Maybe that's what they give all the officers if you get captured. You got money, you got general stuff to trade, to bribe people. It's a little bit suspicious. And it says, my theory is that the new residents are captive Germans and they leave out the headline story about them to make them desperate, easier to break for interrogation. I mean, my intuition would that they would be captured Germans as well. But then the question is, why are they bringing them here? We know there are Germans there, we think, because that's who she's listening into. So maybe they just bring Germans of all, anytime they capture Germans, they bring them there. I don't know. Not sure what they're doing there, but maybe we'll know more as we learn more. Okay, I think that's it. All right, do you want to, what about the article that says Mess phone to Britain? Where do you see that? What page was that? I'll go here. You can tell me. Here's page 1. Here's page 2. Here's page 3. Here's page 4. Here's page 5. Okay, I see the article you're asking about Mess phone to Britain. Let's see. Okay, so here was the article we were just reading. Navy seizes island off Cape Bon. It does say Mess phone to Britain. Prison pay 3 times. Field Marshal Giovanni Messi, commander of the Italian First Army Group in Tunisia at the time of the Axis collapse, arrived in this country by air yesterday. He was accompanied by 2 corps generals, Taddeo Orlando and Paolo Berardi. General von Arnim, who arrived to Britain on Sunday, is understood to be in the same prison camp as General von Thoma, the German commander who surrendered to the 8th Army during its desert advance. Up to noon yesterday, the German people had not been told of the capture of von Arnim. Mess, while in this country, will receive £48 a month, but von Arnim will receive only £16 a month free of income tax. Both these rates are in accordance with the rules laid down by the Geneva Convention of 1929. The state that captured officers shall receive the same pay as officers of corresponding rank in the forces of the detaining power, provided that such pay does not exceed the amount they are entitled to in their own country. Officers' pay in the German army, explained to me yesterday, has always been extremely low. We shall treat the captured generals according to the pay convention. Okay, well, that seems pretty good candidate. Jonathan, well spotted. And then look, here's a continuing 26 generals taken. The list of German and Italian generals captured in the North African campaign now numbers 26, of whom 16 are German and 10 Italians. Names not hitherto, let's see if we can find Holst. Names not hitherto announced are Major General Kochi, commanding German Fleet African Army units. Radinger Command, not yet known. Divi Gens Pietro Melletti, Italian Artillery Commander. Oyando, commanding 29th Italian Corps. Paolo Morand, commanding Italian 21st Corps. Fernando Gellich, commanding Italian Suburban Division. Among other high-ranking Italian officers captured are several brigade generals. According to a detailed list issued by the War Office, Axis manpower losses in Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia since June 1940 amount to at least 600,000. Of these, Italian losses total 25 divisions, plus 6 regiments, and the Germans lost 11 divisions. Many of these divisions had been frequently replenished by large drafts. Details of these losses. Okay, so Italian losses, German, Panzer Division, those are tanks. Fuji Commando troops, it is announced they are serving in the Solomon Islands. Then we have a German, I guess a luxury liner. Hit a mine. Okay, so that's, well, this is our other good candidate. I mean, these are high-ranking Germans, so this is much more appealing, especially if we hear that they also have Italians down there. It may be that our Elizabeth is the German translator and they've got other Italians down there as well. And we're told about some German generals that are being held. Secretly. So I wonder if that's not, more likely to be our place. I think, Jonathan, you did well. I think that's a very good chance that what we're dealing with here is Vladimir House is a holding ground for high value generals, and they're getting information from them. All right, well, we've got a bunch of names, and so we're going to hope to see if maybe we can't find them. In fact, we might look at some of these texts that we couldn't read earlier, where she mentioned Holst, like maybe we should check that out again and make sure she doesn't actually say one of the names in German that we just read. So look, Holst, but really it's Holst. I think that was where we got this. So we might need to retranslate this again. But it didn't translate this part, right? So we don't have this German translation here. Maybe I can show it and someone can try to translate it for us. Ren, look at that, what she's capitalized right, W-R-E-N. That sounds like the name of some plan. A couple more capitalized here, AJS and Ren. AJS and Ren. Can someone translate this for us now that we can read it? I could try to do this in Google Chat and Google Lens now that if it can see it. Maybe we'll scan this. Hopefully we can pick it out better in the Discord. Anna says, when du Zeit hast, when you have time. AJS and Ren, that must stand for something. We're mentioned in another letter, I think, says DJ Moneycut. I'm not sure what that means. But now, what is the girl that they don't talk about? Gretchen, who has disappeared. Look at this. All the talk at the camp is of a girl called Gretchen who has disappeared. Some say she must have run away. But there are rumors she died. There's a tunnel under the house constructed back long before the Cavendish family owned the property. Okay, so we've got a girl, Gretchen, who's disappeared. Vladimir House, 2 languages because of our language skills. So we know she's doing translating. This was our German statement about the acronym WREN and AJS. Let's keep our eye open for that. More German. Translation. Aufhammen. Und nicht something something. Someone can translate that for us, I hope. Nope. What's by hand? We figured that out already. And then this is the letter. This is the newspaper. I see in the newspaper today we will be expecting some new guests. I'm sure the Colonel will be very sure to leave the paper somewhere prominent for the guests to see. Okay. Anna says, third time, Jesse, we should watch the promo video together to this case. They're talking about the basements in the promo. I feel like the promo might be giving stuff away. I'm not inclined to actually watch the promo. If you pick up some snippets of it in the intro, so be it, but I don't want to study the promo. Let's remember, we don't have to jump to any conclusions yet. This was just the first box. It's okay for us to fill in this information as we go. All right, time for us to stop here. 3.5 hours, good long session. We took our time. I like how this is drawing us in. I'm very curious what the next box will be like. I think we are going to do the next box tonight, Friday night at 11 p.m. Unless Jonathan and Anna tell me otherwise. We'll try to fill in our notes in the meantime. So far, so good. I'll see you all. Well, I guess before I shut down the stream, is there anything else anyone wants to talk about? What are your impressions of this so far? We're down to only 12 viewers at the 3.5 hour mark. Anna really wants to watch the promo video. All right, maybe we can watch it before. DJ Moneycut says the Wrens were the Women's Royal Navy Service. Okay. Makes sense. Anna says tomorrow is good. Perry says really getting into it. I mean, I think if you can stand going through the paper, then you're in good shape, because I feel like it's just going to get, well, I shouldn't say what I think it's going to get. Who knows? But I like the context setting. I'm very curious to see how this develops. It does feel like this is a game that's really going to take its time. 11 more episodes to go. Okay, thank you for joining me. If you stop by the Discord, we'll maybe be talking about this a little more. Maybe some scans of the German document in case someone can do a better job of translating them for us. And I'll post the crossword in case someone wants to work on that. I give you my blessing if you want to work on that and solve it on your own outside the stream, that's okay. Jonathan says, I wouldn't have minded a little more in this first box besides the very large paper. We'll have to see what's in the other boxes. Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. I'll see you all in a couple hours tonight at 11 p.m. for box number